This video is for students who are looking for an overview or a little clarity on the Unit 2 assessment, which is ideally completed over a 3-day period. However, depending on the unique needs and schedule of your class, your teacher may have adjusted this number. This assessment calls for you to read, analyze, categorize, and synthesize information from primary sources to write a historical argument in response to this question: what caused the end of chattel slavery in the United States? Basically, you are going to use several documents to not only inform your answer to this question, but also provide specific evidence in support of it. Day 1 begins with you reviewing the assessment itself and then posting any questions you have. I'm going to pull the assessment up now, and you absolutely should spend time reading both the overview and parts 1 and 2 of the task. If you'd like, pause the video here so you can go do that, and then I will go over and clarify some things that I believe will be a benefit to you. Okay, so now that you've read them yourself, let's talk about the overview first. And these first 2 paragraphs provide you with the historical context for this assignment, which you are likely familiar with from what you've studied this unit. Now, this 3rd paragraph, this is what really connects the historical content to the actual tasks that you're going to be doing. Now, please note that every sentence in this paragraph is really just providing you with an idea of what the final product is going to look like, from the types of causal reasoning that we're going to want you to include, also how your evidence should be organized, and also whether you're going to choose structural forces or human agency as kind of the basis of your thesis. And I'll elaborate on that in just a moment. Let's take a look at that task. And like it says right here, you're going to be using documents to write an argument essay that answers this prompt: what caused the end of chattel slavery in the United States? And just down below over here, we see the 2 options that are provided to you as either human agency of African Americans or President Abraham Lincoln. The rest of part 1 is really going to be the pre-writing part of this process, and this will likely be done over the first 2 days. In part 2, which we see right over here, this is really just kind of like an outline checklist of what your argument essay is ultimately going to look like. Step 4 right here lets us know that a rubric is provided, so let's scroll down and take a quick look at that. Now, I know rubrics are very, very word dense, and in a lot of ways they're a little overwhelming. So here's my advice. I would really just focus on the historian skills that you see here in the leftmost column, and this is going to make you aware of what you're going to be assessed on as you construct your essay. Also, a trick that I tell my own students is maybe if you are overwhelmed by the rubric, focus on just this column for the meets standards. Now, for some of you, this is the target that you're going to aim for. For others, this will provide you with the awareness of what you need to surpass in order to exceed standards. After you've gone through this and you are comfortable with what the tasks are and how you will be assessed, return to the slides and you can post any questions that you want your teacher to respond to in this blue box. The next step is for you to read the 2 anchor texts that will provide you with opposing viewpoints from 2 highly respected historians concerning whether it was the agency of African Americans or President Lincoln that ended chattel slavery in the United States. The point is that after reading both of these and you consider everything else you know about this issue, whichever side you do end up taking, there are experts who agree with you. As you read these 2 texts, the first by Barbara Fields and the other by James McPherson, there are also some guiding questions on the right and spaces for you to take your notes. Also, in the last sentence of both headnotes, it does inform you which perspective that each historian argues. And I would highly recommend that you also annotate as you read these and look for evidence the historian provides supporting their claim. Since these texts will likely have a huge influence on the argument you eventually make, you want a deep understanding of both. And to help you unpack the historian's claims, you are provided with the critical reading for argument tool, which you can see right here. You are going to complete this twice, once for each text, but it is worth the effort because they will guide you through how to evaluate each author's claims. One of the greatest obstacles all students of history face, myself included, is confirmation bias and positionality. And like it says here, when reading texts, confirmation bias can lead us to only consider points that support our already held positions, to misunderstand points that seem parallel to ours, or sometimes to ignore or minimize points that conflict with our positions. This tool will hopefully help you minimize this. If you click on this link right here, it will take you to a video that goes into more depth about what confirmation bias is. And if you would like a more detailed walkthrough and modeling of this tool, there is a separate video available for that. When you're done analyzing these two anchor texts and you use the critical reading argument tool on both, go back to the slides. And the last thing to do for day one is to think about everything you learned and to actually create your thesis by finishing this sentence. Day two begins by asking you to recall the thesis that you created at the end of day one. Then we see here that the second task is for you to imagine two primary source documents that might help you make the argument. And the purpose of getting you to hypothesize about these is because you'll have the option to find your own supporting sources later on in this day. For instance, if you selected the Agency of African Americans as the foundation of your thesis, you might want to think about leading African American voices in the abolitionist movement and different methods and mediums they took to spread their ideas. If you selected Abraham Lincoln, what are some documents that you think he might have created that are relevant to this? The idea is that the more thoughtful you are here, the better ideas you'll have for primary sources later on. The next step is for you to review the sources made available to you that you are going to use to strengthen your argument. Some of these you've seen in prior lessons, like the Emancipation Proclamation and South Carolina's Declaration of Secession. However, some are new, even though you've studied the content before, like this image relating to Nat Turner's revolt. You should spend time going through each one of these and consider how they might add something new or unique to your argument. If you opt to find your own source or sources, it is important that they are not only useful, but also reliable. To help you with this, the 4 moves plus 1 habit protocol will be made available, and I'm going to pull it up right here. This is going to be especially helpful when assessing secondary sources. With all the fake news, sponsored content, and bias that pervades online articles, utilizing this flowchart will guide you through the 4 steps you should always take. For primary sources that you might find from online databases such as the Library of Congress, docsteach.org, or teachingamericanhistory.org, you may find that the sourcing and evaluating reliability tool to be more useful to evaluate the creator's purpose, audience, point of view, and bias. And if you'd like to use this tool, feel free to request copies from your teacher. After ensuring that any sources you selected are reliable, or if you selected from the ones provided, there is a graphic organizer in the assessment document that will not only help you break down and analyze each source, but also help you understand how each could strengthen your argument. Remember that when we first looked through this assignment, we noted that your argument should include multiple categories of causal reasoning, and this organizer will likely help you identify them. Also, breaking down each document in this way will also help you distinguish the value and insight that each adds to your supporting evidence. Being aware of these things will really help you leverage each document as you construct your argument. The third and final day is dedicated to you using everything that you've read and done to write your argument essay. Before doing so, I would highly recommend doing 2 things first. 1, I would review this outline that appears below the graphic organizer that you did on day 2. And it's going to help you organize your writing, as well as reminding you of the required elements. Second, you might also want to run through that rubric one last time just to remind yourself of what you noted on day 1. And like it says here, after you finish writing your argument essay, you can also use the rubric to kind of self-assess and give yourself an overall score.